We're talking with a man who spent more than a decade in the NFL. He was an offensive lineman, most notably for then the Oakland Raiders. It is Lincoln Kennedy, an All-American in college at the University of Washington, went to a Super Bowl with Oakland, and now you hear him all over the broadcasting channels on Fox Sports Radio, where I've had the opportunity to fill in as an anchor on his show with Anthony Gargano on Saturday mornings on FSR. You can also hear Lincoln as the color analyst for the Las Vegas Raiders. He does so much other entities when it comes to broadcasting as well. I think we'd be here for a whole podcast if we were to include everything. But Lincoln, I'm Bryan Fenley, an anchor at Fox Sports Radio. It's an honor to have you on and showcase your career. Both of us are from San Diego, and you've been open about, Lincoln, how your upbringing in San Diego strengthened you. And in what ways did you find during your early goings that you had to grow up faster than maybe you wanted to?
Well, you know what? The thing is that as a kid, you're always looking to be accepted. I think that's something that's constantly within our youth growing up. And a lot of times it's in the wrong capacity. It's in the wrong area. For me, the inner city, where I grew up in Skyline in East San Diego and Canto, there were a lot of gangs. There were a lot of Bloods and Crips feuding in Lincoln Park and all kinds of things that were happening. And so, the recruitment of young men to try to strengthen their numbers was rampant. And just like any young man, I fell into that sort of gap, if you will, where you want to be accepted and you want to be better, or not be better, but you want to be a part of something. Before I got into sports, I learned better about myself after I got into sports. But I didn't start playing sports till I was in 10th grade in high school. Other than that, I was in the band, a little bit of a band geek. And so looking for acceptance drew me to those types of crowds and things. And it wasn't better for me. It wasn't better for me in any capacity. But you know what? You learn. And the thing is, for me, Bryan, I had the fortune of realizing that running with gangs and running with feuds wasn't who I was before it was too late. And I was able to find a way to get out. And sports provided that way out for me. Football provided that way out for me. Playing in the 10th grade and just getting that sort of sports bug, that jock itch, if you will, provided a way for me to stay off the streets and do something that was a little bit more, promising and commendable.
Yeah, you were an outstanding trumpet player, and I wonder, to this day, I'm sure you could still play a song or two or more.
I wish I could. Trust me, I wish I could. I would love to pick up the trumpet and do it, but I can't bend my lips to twist as much like as I used to back then. But the Herb Albert and Brenton Marcellus days are gone when it comes to the trumpet player. But yeah, I wish I could.
What's the impact that Don James has had on you to this day?
Don James is a great man, in my opinion. And the reason why is because his integrity stood throughout everything he said to me. I was originally recruited as a defensive lineman. And I wanted to try to play defense to help me. A couple things. There was more glory in defense than there was in offensive line play. And more importantly, I wanted the opportunity to try to play defense to show that I could do something. I was different than what most people had thought I was. Don James recruited me as a defensive lineman. And when they changed their defensive philosophy at the University of Washington, he actually had a sit-down conversation one-on-one to me. And he said, look, we recruited you as a defensive lineman. You can stay on defense, but I'm going to be honest, you're probably not going to play too much because we're changing our philosophy. Or you can move to offense, and there's probably a little bit more promise for you. To me, that was the best conversation I could have, because later that day I went and called my high school coach, who was my mentor at the time, and I said they want to move me over to offense. And my high school coach, John Shacklett, said, you know what, Lincoln, if you move over to offense, you'll be all pro one day and you'll be a first-round draft pick. And I was like, really? He's like, yes, trust me, this will be a good move for you. And so the rest is history after that.
drafted by the Falcons, but you really started to find a groove when you were with the Raiders, end up going to a Super Bowl. I was at that game. I
Gosh.
recall that one. And
Yeah.
it was a challenging game, obviously, from a Raiders standpoint, but what are some of the biggest moments of that game, the lead up, all the pageantry around that come to mind that you've never felt before or never after? Just that was something that stood out.
Well, first of all, you from San Diego, you know about the Murph, you know Jack Murphy
Oh
Stadium.
yeah.
And it had many changes through my lifetime. I actually played Point Loma for a CIF championship in that
That's
game
right.
in that stadium. I lost that game. There were many big games that I had against the Chargers, but for the most part, as a Raider, we were successful in that stadium against the Chargers. But that Super Bowl was not. I was actually part of the halftime show against with Washington and Denver that was in the Super Bowl in high school. I
Oh
was
wow.
I was one of the guys that was holding up those stands where the skaters were performing in the halftime show. Anyways, long story short, leading up to that game, it was truly a very precious moment for a number of reasons for me because San Diego was my hometown, and I was there part of a Super Bowl. And even though I was with the Raiders and the Chargers had a bit of rivalry, and Marty Schottenheimer was a coach, he didn't like us. He made it hard for us to practice. Everything else, the city didn't want us. So on, so on, so on, and so forth. I was still a VIP in everything that I did that week. So that week was quite memorable from all the gatherings and the festivities as a VIP, as a former Morris High graduate, and everything else, and everything I did, from my alma mater. But going back to the Murph and playing in that stadium, I wish the turnout was better. I wish that they were dropping our confetti colors at the time, but it was what it was. Tampa Bay came in more prepared than us. Jon Gruden was the head coach then, and he coached his defense to prepare for what we could do, and they nullified a lot of things. And so we look at that game. 4 pick sixes was the difference in the game, and you can't overcome that easy. Even though we had our share of interceptions or shots at interceptions, you can't overcome that type of thing easily.
What's it like now, having been on the field with Jon Gruden and all of that, and now being in the broadcast booth, overseeing what he's doing as a coach with the Raiders, and how you're thrown into this unique dynamic where you've seen what he can do on the field, you've been on the field when he's been there, and now you're here critiquing him from a broadcasting perspective, and doing it in a way where you want to be honest, you want to be spot on with your assessment, but also dealing with the I don't want to cross a certain line, or I want to be fair, but I'm on Team Raiders as well, and sort of dealing with that as far as how you can kind of appease both parties.
I've been in the business for almost 18 years, broadcasting. And one things I've learned is what I consider developing your voice. And Bryan, I got to tell you, if you're going to be in this business and you want to have longevity in this business, you have to be honest.
Yeah.
The thing is that what I've learned is that most people will consider me a homer because I played for the organization. But I've often said in many capacities that I'm not going to sugarcoat it. If you play like crap, I'm going to call out crap. If you play well, I'm going to call well. I call what I see, and I analyze what I see. And the insight of playing for Gruden, I understand a lot of his mentalities, a lot of his ways, because they're still prevalent to this day. A tiger doesn't change his stripes overnight. He is still the same person that I played for. There's still a lot of plays that I played. The same, I can see it. I can recognize
Wow.
it. So as a broadcaster, this actually helps me enhance my voice because I will break down and I will critique what I see because this is what I know, this is what I experience, this is what I know how it works, what it doesn't work, what nullifies it, all the things that go into it. It's all part of having your voice. And that's what you have to be critical of. You have to call it like you see it. And your fans want to hear that. They want to expect that from you. Don't just say everything is rosy. No, everything's not rosy. You know, for example, the fact that the Raiders for the last 2 years have had a second half slump where they've collapsed and their record has gone down. You have to criticize that. You have to call it what it is. You have to talk about it. Why are we here? Why are we there? What's going on? Because your fans deserve that. So it actually has been a dream come true to help me develop my voice, because I know Gruden. I played for Gruden. And let me tell you, this is exactly what Gruden did when I played, and this is what he's doing now, and this is why it's good, bad, or indifferent.
Final question. We're talking with Lincoln Kennedy. I'm Bryan Fenley. You are a national voice, speaking of voices, on Fox Sports Radio. You work with Anthony Gargano on Saturday mornings from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern. Why do you two have such good on-air synergy?
Well, first of all, 6 to 10 a.m.
6 to 10. Yeah, that extra hour. My bad. Yes.
Oh, good. 4 to 10. The 6 to 10, 4-hour show.
Yes.
One of the reasons why Anthony and I are so cool with one another, where our birthdays are only separated by one day, on February 12th, February 13th. So our personalities in many ways are alike, and our devout for sports is also in many ways alike. You see, we're both very passionate about what we know, who we know, how we know it, and how we got there. And so when you have that type of synergy, it just creates a natural conversation. And that's why we call our show The Fellas. You know, we pattern our show after just guys sitting around a table. If you're having a couple brewskis or dinner, just shooting the stuff about sports, whatever it is. Oh man, did you see the way the Angels played the Dodgers last night? Oh my goodness. What is going on with Mike Trout? How can we like those types of conversations just flow? It's a very natural and effortless feeling. It just flows. And so because of our passion, especially for the NFL and football in general, that creates an energy that we can carry for some time. You know, because you're in the business, doing radio, sports talk radio for 4 hours is not an easy task.
Sure.
It's not. And especially when you're on a national show, because there's so much that you can cover. There's so many ways that you can go. How do you create a flow to where it's comfortable and knowing? And so I prepare my notes. One reason why I'm glad I only have a one day a week show with them, because I prepare my notes on a national scale to where I can conversate about anything and everything, the biggest topics, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Los Angeles Chargers, all of that stuff that goes. I prepare myself, and Anthony does the same thing, because he does radio still 5 times a week before we meet. So when we come together, it's like, okay, we want to talk about this, and bam, we're ready to go. We go. That's how we move. But it's more of an energy, a personal energy that Anthony and I had when we met. Goodness, what was that? In December of 2011, I think it was.
Wow.
Year anniversary. We met at the Army-Navy game in Philadelphia the first time.
Yeah.
That time we've considered ourselves brothers from another mother.
Well,
how close we are.
Yeah, I mean, it shows on the air. It's a great listen, and I love the humor that you guys have as well. Lincoln, it's been an honor. Hope we get to do it again sometime. Really appreciate you. Look up to you. It's Lincoln Kennedy. I'm Bryan Fenley. Thank you so much, man. I really, really thank you for your time.
Bryan, the pleasure's mine. Thank you for having me, brother.